For more than a century, freak shows fascinated, startled, and entertained crowds, featuring people with rare physical features. From conjoined twins to bearded women, these performers were both exploited and admired, turning their differences into a means of survival. Yet behind the curtain, their lives were often far more complex than the spectacle suggested. Who were these real-life circus freaks, and what became of them? Let's uncover the astonishing and sometimes tragic stories of the 15 most scary circus monsters that actually existed. Number 15. The Missouri Giantess. Ella Ewing was born in 1872 in the rural town of Gorin. By age 9, her growth began to accelerate rapidly, eventually surpassing 8 feet. While skeptics argued she was closer to 7 feet, to locals and audiences alike, she was the tallest woman they had ever seen. Her devout parents initially rejected offers to display her, but by her 20s, Ella agreed, only if they could accompany her. Billed as the Missouri Giantess, she toured dime museums, appeared at Chicago's 1893 World's Fair, and joined Barnum and Bailey, Sells Floto, and Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Careful with money, she built a custom home with vaulted ceilings tailored to her height. By 1910, she retired with financial stability, but declining health soon followed. She died in 1913 at age 40, remembered not just for her size, but for her discipline, grace, and financial savvy. Ella didn't chase fame recklessly. She managed it, lived with purpose, and left on her terms. Number 14. Lalu Ramperad. Lalu Ramperad didn't walk into a circus. He entered with a parasitic twin fused to his chest. His twin's lifeless torso, complete with limbs and genitals but no head, was often dressed as a sister to fuel audience curiosity. Promoters, ignoring his Muslim faith, billed him as a jovial Hindu, feeding Western stereotypes for bigger ticket sales. In 1888, a British promoter brought him to Europe, and by 1891, he was touring America with Barnum and Bailey and the Ringling Brothers. Audiences were stunned, making him a mainstay attraction. In 1905, while traveling to Mexico with Norris and Rowe, Lalu died in a tragic train accident. His condition remained one of the most remarkable biological rarities ever displayed. Beyond circus sensationalism, his life exposed the unsettling reality of exploitation. Lalu wasn't just a spectacle. He was a human reminder of nature's unpredictability and how quickly it can be turned into business. Number 13. The Elephant Girl. Sylvia Portorus, or as people called her, the Elephant Girl, rose to sideshow fame in the 1940s America due to elephantiasis, a rare condition that grotesquely enlarged her feet. Archival photographs show her composed, sometimes even smiling softly as crowds gawked at her swollen limbs. Her right foot was far larger than her left, forcing a heavy limp that only heightened public fascination. Before each show, Sylvia addressed the audience with calm dignity, explaining her condition and always closing with, "It's God's will, and there's nothing I can do about it." That simple line, spoken with poise, earned her a quiet respect rarely granted in that era. Unlike many who were coerced into spectacle, Sylvia chose the spotlight, touring with traveling shows across the country. She never shrank beneath the gaze. She met it, unshaken. Her presence was serene yet commanding. Sylvia wasn't defined by deformity. She was defined by resolve. What remains isn't freakishness, but a legacy of grit and grace. Number 12. The Ohio Bigfoot Girl. With claw-like fingers and enormous feet, the sideshow often highlighted bodies that defied the norm. One such figure was Fanny Mills, known as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl. Born in 1860 with Milroy disease, a rare condition causing massive limb swelling, her feet grew to a startling 19 inches long and 7 inches wide. Despite being 5'2" and weighing only 115 pounds, the contrast between her petite frame and massive feet drew stares. By 1885, Fanny embraced her difference and entered the sideshow circuit, touring across America. People came to gawk at her feat, but left speaking of her poise and charm. To fuel publicity, promoters even offered $5,000 to any man who would marry her. In 1886, she met William Brown, her nurse's brother, and the two fell deeply in love. Their quiet marriage outside the spotlight proved that love could thrive beyond spectacle. Behind the exaggerated posters and exaggerated measurements was a woman who lived gently and loved deeply. Number 11. Julia Pastrana. Julia was born in 1834 in rural Mexico and lived nearly every moment of her life on display. She had hypertrichosis and gingival hyperplasia, conditions that left her face covered in thick black hair and a protruding jaw filled with 2 rows of teeth. Her husband, Theodore Lent, originally purchased her and turned her into a spectacle, training her to dance, sing, and speak several languages. They eventually married, and Julia gave birth to a son who inherited her condition. He died 3 days later. Julia followed 5 days after due to childbirth complications. Rather than grieve, Lent embalmed both bodies and toured them across Europe for profit. He later married another woman with similar features and was eventually committed to an asylum. Julia remained unburied for over a century, finally laid to rest in 2013. Her life was a masterclass in exploitation. Her legacy, though brutal, endures as a reminder of how far cruelty will stretch for curiosity and coin. Number 10. The Cardiff Giant. George Auger was born in Cardiff, Wales in 1881, his hometown inspiring the nickname the Cardiff Giant. It had nothing to do with Barnum's earlier hoax, just simple geography. Auger measured over 7 feet 4 inches, though agents inflated the number to 8 feet 4 to sell tickets. His big break came after attending a Barnum and Bailey show in England. He dwarfed their featured giant, and soon he was offered a spot in the act. By 1903, he'd crossed the Atlantic and settled in America, where he performed steadily. In 1906, he launched a vaudeville show based on Jack the Giant Killer, sharing the stage with the Horvath Midgets. For a decade, the act blended fairy tale drama with sideshow appeal. He later returned to the circus and was cast in Harold Lloyd's Why Worry, but died suddenly in 1922 at only 41. To fans, he remained Captain, a nickname rumored to be gifted by royalty and never forgotten. Number 9. Alberta Carris. Alberta Carris, remembered as Adam and Eve, blurred gender lines long before society had the vocabulary for it. Some believed Carris was intersex. Others said the performer was Harry Caro, a master impersonator. What people saw in the 1920s was bold. Posters depicting Carris split vertically, one side in tailored men's clothing, the other in glamorous women's dress. In a time when androgyny was scandalous, Carris made it box office gold. Touring with showman Bobby Reynolds, Carris became a sensation at venues like Hubert's Museum in Times Square and on the Lowe's Circuit. Handouts advertised the act on 11 by 17-inch sheets folded into pamphlets, complete with a striking split-gender photograph. Facts about Carris were blurred by rumor, but that mystery only amplified the intrigue. The act was part shock, part performance, part provocation. In an age where sideshows thrived on spectacle, Alberta wasn't just freaks. They were a challenge to the audience's comfort, and that was the real show. Number 8. Count Orloff. Ivanow Vladislaus von, aka Count Orloff, was billed as the transparent and ossified man. Born in Budapest, his early life was unremarkable until age 14, when severe illness set in. Chronic pain plagued him, and opium became his only relief. His most unsettling feature was his skin, so translucent that veins and arteries appeared unnaturally exposed. Some even claimed that when backlit, you could read text straight through his torso. Ads also branded him ossified, though it's unclear if he truly suffered from stone-like bone hardening. Equal parts anomaly and enigma, Orloff eventually ran his own traveling show. Though his condition weakened him physically, he turned his affliction into a profitable identity. His legend remains vivid, part science, part sideshow, part specter. More than just the human window pane, Orloff became the haunting embodiment of the uncanny, an eerie presence whose suffering, brilliance, and myth blurred until no one knew where reality ended and the show began. Number 7. Petrus Gonzalez. In the 16th century, Petrus Gonzalez was born with hypertrichosis, a condition that covered his face and body in thick hair. Mistaken for an animal, he was caged and shipped to King Henry II's court. Once examined, doctors realized he wasn't a beast, just a child, human in every sense, except unusually hairy. Instead of being discarded, Petrus was raised in the royal household. He learned Latin, etiquette, and military strategy, a life most peasants would envy. He later married Catherine, who worried that their children would inherit his condition. Out of 7, 4 were also born covered in hair. The press dubbed them the Hairy Family, paraded across noble courts as both curiosities and courtiers. Polite smiles didn't erase the fact that they were treated as novelties, not equals. Their portraits spread through Europe, fanning myth and gossip. While Beauty and the Beast may not be his story, Petrus lived a reality stranger than any fairy tale. Number 6. George Lippard. George carried one of the rarest anatomies ever recorded, 3 legs and 2 functioning hearts. His extra leg, attached at the hip, was fully formed but largely useless. Lippard swore physicians confirmed both hearts, though skeptics doubted it. In the 1860s, he entered the sideshow world as the 3-legged man, appearing in dime museums and later with major circuses in Europe, and the U.S. audiences were captivated not only by his unusual body, but by his polished manners and calm explanations. He never resorted to exaggeration, letting his presence speak for itself. As shows grew flashier, his fame dimmed. In later years, gangrene forced the amputation of his 3rd leg, and he died in poverty in 1906, buried without fanfare. Despite the lonely end, Lippard's case remains one of the most extraordinary in medical history. Where others chased shock value, George proved that authenticity, carried quietly, could still command a crowd. Number 5. The 4-legged girl. Human uniqueness has long fascinated audiences, and few lived it more visibly than Myrtle Corbin, the 4-legged girl. Born in Tennessee in 1868 with dipygus, a rare birth defect, she had 2 separate pelvises, each with its own set of legs. Far from hiding, Myrtle used her condition as a platform. At just 13, she entered the sideshow scene and became an overnight sensation. Spectators marveled at her ability to move all 4 legs independently, and physicians lined up to study her case. But Myrtle's story didn't end in the tent. She married James Clinton Bicknell, a man who loved her beyond anatomy, and together they raised 4 children, a quiet family life tucked behind the curtain. Myrtle showed that strength wasn't in hiding abnormalities, it was in owning them. Her legacy endures as a reminder that dignity can exist in even the most unusual bodies, and that the rarest thing of all is the grace to live fully with what you're given. Number 4. Maurice Tillet. Maurice Tillet's life is proof that bone and spirit can shape a legend. At 17, he was diagnosed with acromegaly, a disorder that enlarged his bones, transforming his once average frame into something startling. Instead of hiding, Maurice moved from France to the U.S., reinventing himself as the French Angel, a pro wrestler impossible to ignore. His broad jaw, towering build, and unshakable dominance made him a sensation. He captured the American Wrestling Association World Heavyweight title and filled arenas across the country. But away from the ring, Maurice was soft-spoken, spiritual, multilingual, and even wrote poetry. His massive frame carried constant pain, but he never turned it into an excuse. Before he died in 1954, life masks of his face were created, later rumored to inspire Shrek's iconic look. Whether myth or not, Maurice's true legacy wasn't freakishness. He was a champion, an intellectual, and a human. Number 3. The Alligator King. Tahar Dwis was a daredevil in every possible sense. Born in Marrakesh during the 1950s, he stepped into street performance almost before he could speak. By 6, he was dazzling crowds, first as a snake charmer, later as a strongman. In his teens, he earned a Guinness World Record for holding 12 men, over 2,000 pounds, on his back. But his life took a new turn in the 1980s after meeting Seminole wrestler Bob Tiger in Florida. Tiger taught him alligator wrestling, an ancient art Tahar fused with Moroccan flair. He became the Moroccan Master and the Alligator King. By the late 80s, he was a headliner for Ringling Brothers, subduing live gators before massive crowds. In the 90s, he performed nightly in Las Vegas at the Riviera Hotel. His legacy is pure spectacle, rising from the alleys of Marrakesh to the glare of circus arenas, finally settling into a reptile-filled home that crowned him both beast tamer and showman. Number 2. Rick Genest. Nicknamed Zombie Boy, Rick Genest rose to fame by tattooing over 90% of his body, including a skull-like face. His early years were spent homeless, chasing circus dreams while marking his skin, starting with his first tattoo at 16. His ink earned him 2 Guinness World Records, 178 insect tattoos and 138 skeletal tattoos. His striking appearance caught the fashion world's attention when Nicola Formichetti introduced him to Lady Gaga, landing him a breakout role in her Born This Way music video in 2011. Despite the global attention, Rick stayed grounded in Montreal, surrounded by artists and punks. Friends described him as kind, sincere, and never obsessed with fame. He used his platform to support youth shelters and advocate for outcasts. On August 1, 2018, Rick died at age 32. In fact, the infamous Lady Gaga called the loss beyond words. Though his face resembled death, his life was full of color, defiance, and compassion, a portrait of how self-expression can challenge and inspire. All right, now, let's end this with Number 1. The Three-Legged Wonder. While oversized limbs caught curiosity, Francesco Frank Lentini stunned the world with something far rarer, a fully formed third leg. Born in Sicily in 1889, Lentini was attached to a parasitic twin that never separated, leaving him with an extra leg growing from his right hip. Rather than hiding it, he owned it. He trained his body to move with balance and coordination, mastering walking, running, and even riding a bicycle with 3 legs. By age 8, he sailed to the United States and quickly gained fame as the Great Lentini. He performed football tricks, leapt hurdles, and danced, blending athleticism with uniqueness in a way that made him unforgettable. His fame stretched across carnivals and theaters, but so did his life. Lentini became an American citizen, married, raised children, and later bought land in Italy. His story wasn't about deformity, it was about mastery, mobility, and making peace with the unusual. His legacy? Balance, physical, emotional, and personal. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you very soon.